So, what is Grandma hiding? I have to admit that that's just a catchy title for the presentation, because I cannot really share with you what Grandma is hiding. Our story team have all the secrets. But today, instead, I want to talk with you about what our players hiding. But first, hi, I'm DISH M ELDISHNAWY, and I'm the product and growth lead at Metacore. I'm a very passionate product person about player psychology and behavior. But I'm a huge fan as well of data. Shout out data people on the stage here. I really believe that data can tell us a lot about our player's story. But we've all been there. It's very challenging and hard, and it's challenging for us as well to merge between these two factors together, though. Psychology and behaviors and the data we have in the game. But the good thing is that the moment you do that, you unlock certain insights about your players that can help you grow your game. And not only that, it can help you regrow your game. Because let's face it, even the most successful game in the world had some times of slowing down of growth. And often, when we talk about slowing growth, it can look like something like that, right? So we can talk about lifetime value. So when we acquire a player, how they spend day over day. Or we can talk about the retention. So how they retain, how does our players retain when they come to the game, day over day. And quite often, slowing in growth means that this too gets worse year over year. And then as a game team, we are kind of scratching our head. So we have two options. We can continue to invest heavily in user acquisition, which is, of course, a risk we can take. Or we can look into what changes we can do in our product to somehow try to improve the situation of the existing players in our game, and as well improve the situation for the players who will come and join and start to play our games. And today, I actually want to focus on the second one, so not user acquisition. That's a beast on its own, we all know that. But I want to argue that actually there's a lot we can do in our product to grow our games. So on a very, very high level, what does that often mean? Well, it means we need our players to come to the game. We want them to engage more. And as they engage, they start to use the resources, the diamonds and gems they have. And as they do more and more, some of them will decide to convert and maybe buy something from the store on an offer. But the tricky aspect that this have to feel natural. And again, now we're facing something as well. What does natural really mean? So let's start by looking at the behavioral side. For a player to have a natural experience in a game, there's three elements that they kind of tend to like to have. One, they like to set their own goals. And quite often, even if we design a game for a certain experience, each player will have their own goal. Some player their goal will be beating their high score. Another one will come to maybe like complete a collection. And as they choose this goal, they take actions, how they use the resources in the game to achieve it. And the most important thing that this have to feel autonomous. So they need to take this choice. And as a game, we need to allow them to be able to do that. And if, as a game, we somehow build a game that it wouldn't reward them for that, and rather punish them for taking that choice, that's when things doesn't get good. And that's when the game slows down. But then, if every player have a goal, and if everyone wants to do something different, how can we build a game for all these players, basically? So let's try to maybe zoom in and get a bit closer to the data, get closer to the game. How does that really look inside the game itself? How does it reflect there? Well, the first thing, like their goal is to complete something, right? So irrespective to their goal, they want to complete something. And that's from Merge Mansion. And in Merge Mansion, our players always want to complete tasks, right? Irrespective to how they do that, they want to complete the task. And when they do complete the task, that helps them to progress. And when they progress in the game, they feel motivated and they continue to engage in the game. In our case, that could be progressing towards unlocking the mansion. And after they unlock the mansion, it could be discovering the secrets of Grandma Ursula here within the mansion. What kind of crimes she did, maybe. There's a lot of knives in the game. But the most important factor here is that the rate between how much they complete, how they choose to complete, and what they choose to complete, and how much progression we give them, that's exactly this feed back to them the rewarding moments or the punishing moments if we slow down their progression. Because after all, what we all try to achieve is a flow state. And flow state is like basically that state where players get a bit of a challenge in the game to complete something, right, towards progression. But then this challenge starts to decrease, become a bit easier. So we face them with another challenge that is a bit more demanding. They improve their skills, and so on and so on. And if the game is so challenging, then it gets really difficult and stressful. But if it's quite easy as well, that's not fun. It breaks the flow state because it's like kind of easy, no? And the flow state is not just a state, like a psychological state. It actually has this quite interesting like physical effect on us. So because when you are in a flow state as a person, you are in this kind of transit hypofrontality. And this transit hypofrontality means that your frontal cortex here, the front side of the brain, it slows down so much. I know it sounds really bad. It sounds like, okay. But actually, when this happens, we are hyper-focused. We are not distracted. And the most amazing thing we do in our games is that our internal critical thoughts stops when we are in a flow state. And that's why people really enjoy games, right? After all, they want to be in a flow state, they want to enjoy the game, and they want to feel relaxed, right? We've all been there where we are engaged so much in a game, and our family members or couples are like, how are you enjoying this? Looks intense, right? But that's because of the flow state. All right, but that's about the behavioral side. Let's try to approach the data, right? The tricky thing is, can we have a flow state that fits all? So now we want to have a game. We want this game to adapt somehow to provide this flow state based on their goals and based on how they choose to use their resources. And after all, the goal to grow the game is to serve our most valuable players, or payers, right? And that's maybe where we need to start from. Who are our most valuable players? And then start to look at what they do in the game, how they like to engage, and serve them better. And that's the model I would like to introduce to you. I first thought to call this segmentation, then I thought that would be a really boring title, because how many times you heard segmentation? But segmentation is a really valuable tool for us, right? You segment your players by looking at their data to try to better understand and give different experiences. Quite often, when someone says segmentation, they mean one of those. They mean either you bucket your players or segment them with monetization. So you look at how much players spent in the last maybe 30 days, right? How many transactions they did. Or then it's through engagement. So how many sessions or what's the play time. And nothing is really wrong about this. It's just the problem that this eventually starts to become more informative than actionable. So you come every day to the office, you open your dashboard, you look at your data and split it by these segments, and okay, it is behaving as I expect. The high spenders engage a lot and they spend a lot, right? So it's kind of informative thing. And of course, you can act if numbers change. And the problem of this is that high-level segmentation introduces a form of a bias. I think maybe some of you know about this thing. So let's look at a player here, or someone in our world who is a male, born in 1948, raised in the UK, married twice, lives in a castle, and wealthy and famous. Any guesses? I hear King Charles. Correct. But it is Aussie exactly as well. And one can argue that there's something common between them. If we look from monetization point of view, yeah, if I will design an offer in the game for both of them, they probably have the same purchase power. But I guess we will all agree that from behavioral perspective, they would definitely like to enjoy many things in life really, really differently. And that's why I want to introduce you to the concept of quantitative behavioral segmentation. Sounds a bit heavy, but it is basically how we can use our game data to segment our players and stick our behavioral knowledge about our players to it. We're already familiar with the qualitative side, and all of us know about the tools that you can use to build certain personas and different personas in your game and learn about your players. But let's look how we can quantitatively do that. Because that will help us to actually have actionable things we can do and put on our roadmap to help and identify our most valuable players. So yeah, pun intended in a way. Let's take it step by step. And this is a form of a mental process for the team. So I highly advise you to go through that, like product people, data people, design people together, do it together. Start from the monetization and the engagement. Define a metric for each of those. Monetization, that is quite often how much your players spend in a month, for example, on average. Engagement, I want you to continue tricking yourself in something. Think, what do you think represents the highest engagement in the game? Quite often, as game developers, we tend to choose something like health or stamina. So, right, if players spend more time in the game, they will use more health and they engage more in the game. Let's do that. Let's go through that mental process. The next step is, look at your monthly active users or how many players play in a month in your game. And just simply like divide it by, look at the number of players across these different segments you have. You split it the way you like, depends on your game. These are just example numbers. And look at the revenue they generate from your monthly revenue, right? And only just from this step, you will find really interesting insights. So quite often as game developers, we focus on this like bottom right group, the 3,000 players. We build the games for them, the very highly engaged, the very highly monetized players. And we think that's how we can grow. And that's the kind of features we need to build it for those. But look at that, they are very important. They make 11% of our monthly revenue, for example, here. But the reality is that some players who spend a bit less than them, they actually bring 32% of your monthly revenue. And you will find as well something else intriguing. You'll find players that we think they engage less in the game, but they actually love our game. They're a big bulk of our daily active users and monthly active users, and they even contribute on our monthly revenue more. So maybe if I want to grow my lifetime value and if I want to improve my retention, I rather would focus on these players. And lastly, you might find a huge group of players who have the tendency to they love your game to the level they want to really spend money in it, but not a lot of them have a good experience, so in total, it doesn't really contribute in your revenue much. So you tend not to focus so much on those, but that's an opportunity as well. But I think the most important thing here, as you see, this can look a bit complex, and it will be a bit complex in the beginning. So the most important part, I would say, is to simplify it. So try to simplify this, give it a name that the whole team can use in their daily, basically, work, in their craft. So in this case, let's call the ones who use a lot of health as revivers. We can look at their game data. We will find, indeed, that they use a lot of health or stamina in the game. Twice as much they use on power-ups, for example, in our games. And then look at the strategists. These are people that we saw contribute heavily in our revenue, but they like to use like maybe twice on their gems and diamonds, your hard currencies, in power-ups than health. Then comes the most exciting moment for me. And that would be, now go back to your lifetime value charts, go back to your retention charts, and instead of looking year by year or by some other segment, now look at these personas, look at these players. And I promise you will start to see some discrepancies. So you will see that your game retains much, much better, for example, the revivers. Because as a game team, we are maybe a bit biased towards building features for these players, right? So if I want to improve the overall game retention, maybe I should rather focus on improving the strategist players' retention, because then the average and the total will be higher and better. Same applies for the monetization as well. So next, you can go back to your behavioral side, right? And I think that's the most amazing part, that those personas that educate us about our players can now be put in practice and reflect in our product strategy. So we know the revivers, what kind of personas they have. You can run surveys and learn more about them as well, or use some tool. And maybe you will find that those revivers here, they like to spend their resources to complete things, to push for completion. And you will find that the personas for the strategists here are more for competition, So when they play some leaderboard, like a short leaderboard, they want to use power-ups to jump in the leaderboard, and they get their excitement from that. That's their goal. That's how they want to use their resources. So you can have that in your strategy, in your product strategy. And I think one of the most, and for us as well, that was quite eye-opening, is we normally think that the players who spend a lot of time in our games, as in like long sessions, these are the fans, especially if they spend money a lot in our game, that must be like the players to focus on, right? That's the 3,000 players. But actually, that's a form of like time allocation paradox. Because time allocation paradox is the fact that when people spend time in an activity, it doesn't really mean they are really enjoying it. And I think a really good example of that, like strategic one, is from Netflix, that their content strategy is not based on the viewership time, so how much people spend, but rather on the contextual side, how relevant the content is to you. If you like to watch small movies or short movies, that's fine. We want to retain you. We want you to come day over day in your game. So maybe that's one thing you can do. You can learn about how they engage in your game. So we can look and find that the revivers come 27 days in a month. Wow, that's a lot, right? They come almost every day in a month to our game. Amazing. Of course, we can improve this, but maybe not by much. But then you'll discover that maybe those strategists, which are responsible for more than double the revenue of the revivers to your monthly revenue, so they pay our bills, right? They come only 20 days. That's a lot as well. But maybe there's a space to improve this, right, than improving the 27 days. And I thought to give an example of that. So, for example, in Merge Mansion, we had a feature that is a trading feature. And this trading feature is all about players just trade some items, on their board and get some chests. And if they're lucky, they get some items that is relevant to them. So we thought that, hey, can we maybe encourage people to engage more, because then they come more, retain better, and engage more in the game. So we introduced two things. For the revivers, because we have as well something similar to revivers in our game, we introduced a streak mechanic. They are completionists. They want to push for the streak to complete it. But then we wanted to make sure that the strategists are not frustrated, right? So we introduced to them possibility to refresh the tasks. We introduced to them possibility and some logic that the items they already have in the board, they can submit in this, so they can progress fast. Or they can even use the resources they have as a power-up, as a boost to quickly complete. They are not maybe so excited about the streak mechanic, and that's totally fine. You can as well learn about the monetization, so how these different segments monetize. And I think the most amazing thing as well, that you can build a strategy that would serve both of those segments, or maybe you have 3 segments, depends on your game. So let's look at this example, for instance. And in this one, we have players who maybe prefer to have an average transaction value, so when they purchase something in the game, what's their comfort zone? Around 12 to 13 US dollars. And they bring 13% of the revenue in this example data. But then we have 72% of our revenue, right? So a huge chance as well to even monetize these players more, that prefer to have 7 to 8 US dollars, right? So how can we maybe reflect on this in our game? So I wanted to give an example as well of another feature we had. So we have this mystery pass, which is a season pass in our game, and it used to have a single price point. But then, learning about these people, players and segments and what they prefer, we found that maybe this bulk who spend around 12 to 13, they actually like exclusivity, and they actually find it really undervalued to buy a cheap product, While the ones who are spending 7 to 8, they like to find a good purchase, something that actually suits their purchase power. So it's quite intimidating to tell them, here is a season pass that costs you $9. So we introduced 2 passes, right? You can choose this one and you can choose this one. On a very high level, you might think, why would anyone buy the $7? This one is 15 times more valuable. But the fact is, because it's designed for the persona, they would actually really like that and appreciate it. So I wanted to kind of leave some key takeaways here. So the first one is that user acquisition is really important, and I know in our industry, of course, we focus a lot on that. That's where most of our investment goes. But there's a lot of things we can do in our games that actually can grow the game, but not only that as well, justify the investment further in our user acquisition and in our team and in everything. Because now, as we acquire the players, they perform better, or at least same as how they did in the first year in the game. Segmentation as well is quite important. But the segmentation with monetization and engagement, and this high-level segmentation can take you just so far. If they start to become informative, I really encourage you to start and try maybe more behavioral-based segmentation. Personas, build profiles, connected to your game data. Because that's when you truly understand the motivations and intrinsic motivations and extrinsic as well of your players. Sorry. As well, after you do all this heavy data work, keep it simple. I think if I'll pick one of those key things that I'm a big fan of is simplifying the data. Data democratization is really, really important. It's cool to have complex data, And of course, we need to do it sometimes, but we have to keep it simple. And simple means smart. Because when it's simple, when we have names, when we can visualize it in our game and our development team, then everyone, the product person, the artist, the developer, everyone can consider it in their day-to-day work. Oh, I'm building this feature for the revivers, or I'm building it for the strategists. And finally, that we often, when the game starts to slow down, we think that, okay, now we need to do a big thing, right? But actually, it's not about how much effort or how many months we spend in the feature that would, pay back for the success of the feature. Sometimes, yes, some features can take time, but it is how contextually it's relevant to your most valuable players that actually, if you touch on them, you can grow your lifetime value and you can grow your retention and bring it back to a healthy space. So as a final note here, I want to remind us all that we are actually entertainers. I know that when we go to the office, sometimes we look at dashboards, how did we do last year, the ARPU, the conversion, and all of these numbers, quite important. But I think it's really important to remind ourselves that we are entertainers. So same as the actors, same as the directors and movie directors. And think of how much they care about their audience, right? And that's as much how we, not just product people, but the whole development team, need to care about our audience. And remember, if we entertain them, they will come and they will invest in our games. Thank you so much.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Let's go to the middle.
I gave you 2 minutes extra.
Thank you.
That's kind of fine.
We love
now
that.
I'm worried what questions you'll ask me.
Yeah, you're in for a treat.
All right.
Is this?
This is the dance.
Okay.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Please accept our gratitude for your towards your fascinating exploration into player psychology.
Thank you. Not concerned at all the questions have come.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you, I hope you're open to answering some questions, but now you have no choice.
Okay. No worries. Yes, we have time.
Okay. So, what player insights helped you when you escaped a shark attack?
No, Sarah, that's a story for another time, not that question. How about let's try this. So Dish,
yes.
What is the most surprising thing, maybe
other than that question?
Other than
yes,
that,
okay.
if you could share an unexpected encounter about player behavior that you've encountered while working on Merge Mansion.
Well, I think it's quite related to this. So we have these energies in our game, and of course we have a lot of players who like to use energy and spend a lot of time in the game. But it was quite interesting to understand better about the different behaviors. As a big game, you have a huge number of players, and especially the most valuable players, right, who actually bend the curves. It was quite eye-opening to learn that some of them prefer a different behavior. Maybe even the most important of them prefer a different behavior.
Thank you.
Now, do I get to ask the shark question?
Well, fine. I think we have time. So
I have a point,
okay.
people. Bear with me. So you have shared about escaping a genuine shark attack in life. And then you brought some insights out of that experience to professional life.
Yeah, I actually have this draft in Medium that I never published. I think maybe one great learning about it was that you need to kind of act really fast and quickly, so not dwell a lot about too many data. So you need to sometimes decide, and sometimes a decision is better than no decision at all. Okay. It worked this time. I guess the decision could have been bad as well. I wouldn't be here, so.
Yeah, we're so happy that you're here. Sorry for this.
There's no water here, so it's safe. No, it was a nice moment. I didn't know about it till I saw the recording, so almost cool.
Okay, would you like to just briefly explain what the situation was?
We were just diving for sharks, so we went for them. So it's not a surprise there was a shark. And it was like an oceanic shark, and I think it just got pissed from like one of the people who were taking videos, so much of it. So it's actually fun fact, maybe, that sharks in real life, they do exactly like in the cartoons. So before they attack you, they bend their back like this, you know? Same as we see in the cartoons. So I saw that and I was like, cartoons actually are realistic. So, and an advice, dive deep if a shark gets angry, because if you go up, the sharks never attacks you if you are below them. So just go deep, do not try to escape. That's a bad idea. But of course, we ran out of air eventually, so someone had to exit, and I exited first. My friends love me. Amazing. Yeah. Not only a fun fact, but hopefully information we'll never need, but still
Useful to know. I didn't know that.
It was fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Allo, do we have questions?
Maybe about games?
Oh,
yeah, okay.
Right.
Could you share a couple of games that you're very much into yourself?
Yeah, I'm like really a bit boring. I'm a very much console player. I play FIFA a lot, or FC.
FC.
like FC, not FIFA. I did that competitively, like when I was a teen. Now I'm not that good. You know, this moment when you're old enough that your reflexes are slow, and you're like, you need to reflect that you have like a child on the other side, and you should not try to compete with that.
Yeah.
Things change.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to learn. So from a psychological perspective, you know, that moment when you're playing a game and then you realize what the game developers sort of went after and what they wanted you to do, and you realize, damn it, I just did that.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel?
Maybe that's why I avoid playing mobile games, because I tend to deconstruct them as I play. That's a good point. Like, of course, when you work in the industry, you look at things different, right? So, but as well, one of the things, as I'm a console player, actually there's a lot of things for us mobile game to learn from console, especially in terms of the quality of the content, the storytelling side, and as well, they of course took a lot from the mobile side. Like now, all of them have like season passes and try to have like function the game as a live service somehow to extend its lifetime. So. Yeah, there's something to learn from. Like, I love storytelling, and that's why I like console games and like working in Merge Mansion as well, because we're a very story-driven game.
That makes sense. Do you have time for one more?
I should have spent more time. No, that's fine.
Yeah, the faster you
I'm
apply,
happy if you
the more questions you get.
Yes, yes.
Okay, final question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, good. So we know that we talk about whales, right? We use that term for spenders and so forth.
Yeah.
So which one do you prefer? Whales or sharks?
That's a good question. Whales in the game, definitely. As a product person, I always enjoy seeing more whales. I think I love whales more. They're so kind. I think in general, animals are so kind. Like even sharks, everyone. Like try to stare in an animal eye, and you will see how that they're really kind. All of them, even the ones we think they're dangerous. And actually, it's a fact that sharks doesn't kill that much people as we think. So. But yeah, both are fun, but maybe whales, because they're so huge and you're very vulnerable, and still they like treat you with kindness.
Beautiful.
Great diplomatic answer. Thank you, Dish.
Yeah.
We let you go now.
All right, thank you so much. Thanks.
Let's give him an applause.